ISIS they're primarily Sunni militants from Iraq, and the fact of the matter is that starting in 2009, the United States and Turkey began to take thousands and thousands of these Sunni militants from Iraq, and they brought them into Turkey just across the Syrian border, and they've trained them there for a number of years. These guys know military tactics, they're disciplined, and they are heavily armed. And when the time comes now to really throw a monkey wrench into the Middle East, I mean a monkey wrench so big that it will allow chaos to reign, so you can bring in your own order. Right? We talked about this.
That's right.
You bring these guys in. They call themselves the Islamic State or ISIS, and they're so effective. As a fighting group, they're so effective. They knock down the straw army of primarily Shiite Iraq.
Yeah.
And they sweep north, and they actually have some success against the Kurdish army. The objective is to redraw the map of the Middle East according to the Pentagon's new map of 2007. And when this was issued, this created such a furor that the Bush administration backed away from it. But it's still there, and it's still the plan. In that, that map actually, from an historic standpoint, makes a lot more sense than the map that has existed in the Middle East since the fall of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. Because after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the Western imperialist nations, led by Great Britain, redrew the map in a way that didn't make any sense historically. It forced, for example, in Iraq, it forced the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shiites to all live in one nation, and they hate each other's guts.
Yeah.
So there have been many calls over the years to redraw the map to more of an historic semblance. Give the Shiites their own nation in Iraq. Give the Sunnis their own nation. The Kurds their own nation. Mm-hmm. You take for the Kurds, for example. According to this map, they're going to go from having no nation to having a nation that is comprised of where they live. And where do they live? They live in northern Iraq. They live in parts of Syria, parts of Iran, parts of Iraq. So to create a free Kurdistan, which is what this state is called, you're going to have to take land away from Iraq, Iran, and Syria. Well, would Assad agree to that?
No, of course not.
Unless he's almost crushed by a civil army, a civil war. If he's almost crushed by a civil war and he's fighting for his life, he's not going to put up the fight against losing some of his land that he would otherwise.
Yeah.
Especially if he's promised that the civil war, which was created by the West in the first place, will stop if he says, okay, I'll give up part of his land for a free Kurdistan.
Uncle, right?
There you go. There is, in the year 2002, a new plan was published. Excuse me. It was March of 2003. It was published in Esquire magazine, huge center article that later, about a year later, became a book called The Pentagon's New Map. Okay, by Navy Commander Barnett, who happens to be a part of a Pentagon think tank. And he said, the world is held back from being fully united and integrated, especially the economy is going cashless, being held back by the backward states of the Middle East and Africa. and he called it the non-integrating gap. And he says, how do we kickstart these nations into the 21st century? Well, there are several factors that are holding back these countries being integrated. Number one are entrenched dictators. Number two are entrenched aggressive religions.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Yeah.
So what do? Led by the United States, you invade or threaten to invade these countries, and you overthrow these entrenched dictators and these entrenched aggressive religions. And then when you're done with the first nation or two, then you go to the other nations in the region.